not very good at improv, so I don't know how long I can stay up here. I did come dressed appropriately today. I call this one of my Southern gentleman suits, which is ironic because I'm neither Southern nor a gentleman. First of all, let me say, before I say anything else, on behalf of Senator Graham, I'd like to thank all of you who either called or sent notes or came by the visitation for his father, Andy, who passed away, I guess it was a week ago Sunday. And for those of you who knew Andy, he was a great guy, very personable, and just, you know, never met anyone he didn't like. He was also very involved with the project with the city of Kataisi in the Republic of Georgia, where, you know, we tried to get as much iodized salt over there to help them in that regard. And I know he worked with Trish and everyone over at that program. He had married Dr. Magda Asuba. I don't know if any of you all know her, but she works over at the University of Missouri, and she is from the Republic of Georgia. And Chuck's mother, Andy's first wife, passed away from cancer about 23 years ago, so he remarried, and it was a great relationship. And so I know we want to thank you for everyone who sent cards or letters. And Chuck very deeply appreciated it, and that's what nice in there. Yeah, Kathleen.
Andy was on the disabilities.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Kathleen. He was on the city's, Mayor Hyman had appointed him to the mayor's city commission on people with disabilities, and that's right. He was very involved with that too. So thank you for reminding me about that, Kathleen. As a former member of the House of Representatives, I can tell you, I only got the perspective of being in the majority in my 8 years there. And so I can't tell you that I know that it's from firsthand experience being better in the majority than in the minority, but I've talked to other people, and I know it is. And I work over in the Senate now where we're in the minority, and I can tell you it's a lot worse. And when I was there, we always seemed to be stuck at 87 for about 3 or 4 cycles in a row, which is okay. I mean, it was tight. You had to make sure everyone was there for important votes, but at least we got to set the agenda. You know, we got to be proactive on issues like education and agriculture and other important issues, and health care. That's probably the biggest one where we've seen the difference. But now we're having to play defense on everything, and I feel bad for people like Judy Baker and Jeff Harris and people like that who are so bright and have so much to contribute, and they are ignored day in and day out and marginalized, and there is no effort being made at bipartisanship by the current leadership of the Missouri House of Representatives. And our next speaker today is someone who is trying to change that. Right now, I believe there are 70, and you can correct me, Ronnie, if most people do, but I believe we're at 70 House members right now in the House of Representatives, 70 Democrats, 90 Republicans, and 3 vacancies. And so it's a challenge. You got to get to 82. That's the magic number, 82. So we've got to pick up 12 seats, I believe. Is that right? And that's a challenge to do in one cycle, but not impossible. In fact, last cycle, they picked up 5 seats in the elections of 2006, and that was the biggest gain since 1978. So things are turning around. People are starting to listen. And I know there are some interesting races that might be held in this area that Ronnie will talk about. Ronnie is the executive director of the Missouri House Democratic Campaign Committee, which tries to help elect Democrats all over the state. And he's done a great job, as you've seen with the results last year. I believe he worked in North Carolina before he came here to Missouri. And he's just been a very welcome addition to the state of Missouri and to our efforts to make the House of Representatives more democratic. So I give to you today Ronnie Richardson.
thank you for the warm reception, and Ted, thank you for the kind words. I'm afraid to do this. I am going to correct you just a little bit. The spread right now in the House is there's 70 Democrats, 89 Republicans, and 3 vacancies. A little bit of this, to go a little bit further as to what Ted was saying. The House Democratic Campaign Committee is dedicated solely to electing Democrats to the Missouri House of Representatives. That's our entire job. We're a separate entity from the Democratic Party, although obviously we work very much closely. We have the same goals, and we very much think of ourselves as part of the Democratic Party, and I always appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak to grassroots people who are on the front lines. A little bit about myself. Ted mentioned I came from North Carolina. We were with the House, we established a new Democratic majority in the House there with the Democratic caucus. Hoping like no strike twice, bring that same good fortune to Missouri so that you can all have the good representation that you deserve here in Missouri. As Ted said, last time we made gains. It was our best cycle since 1978. We gained 5 new seats and increased our numbers. That was the goal, was to turn things around, stop the bleeding. Now the goal is to establish another Democratic majority here in Missouri. There are several special elections pending in February. There's a couple that are competitive. There's one that I feel very confident down in the city of St. Louis that we're going to win. That'll narrow the number we need to pick up to 11 right there. If we can win a couple more, we can even possibly get that number down to 9 as soon as February that we would have to get to in order to get the majority back. So you're starting to see the tide turn here in Missouri. There's no question about that. I remember when I first got to Missouri, right after the 2004 elections, it seemed like everybody was sort of despondent and downbeaten. And boy, you don't know how many people I talked to, and I'm sure you did too, that were just so convinced that it would be a really long time before we would be able to talk in terms of a Democratic majority here in Missouri again. And in a couple of short years, we've turned around. When I say we, I mean all of you, everybody, Democrats across the state pulled together. We didn't get down. We dusted ourselves off. We worked hard. And now we're talking in very real terms of establishing new Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate. So I think it's an exciting time to be here. And I want to talk a little bit more today about what it is that we're going to have to do and how we go about getting back to that Democratic majority. A little bit of background about what the House Democratic Campaign Committee does. The way we interact with candidates, I mean, we try to provide strategic advice and infrastructure support to help candidates run what we call modern campaigns. That includes everything from voter contact, going door to door, identifying your voters, persuading people to vote for the right Democratic candidates, helping them with fundraising, getting fundraising lists together, helping them put on fundraisers, explaining to them how to do things like call time, follow-up notes, just very day-to-day rudimentary elements of campaigning we help them with. And then if their mass communications plan, a lot of times we'll buy television time or radio time, or maybe we'll send out direct mail pieces on behalf of Democratic candidates in districts when we think we have a good shot to win. Media relations, try to get good press relations on behalf of our candidates and on behalf of their campaigns. Things like that of what we like to call a modern campaign. I think the level of campaign that is run for the State House today is light years different than what it was just like 10 or 12 years ago. If you look at in terms of the money that gets spent, if you look in terms of the professionalism and the type of techniques, I mean, it's not that long ago where things like polling or direct mail or the use of focus groups, these things were unheard of at the state legislature. Those things that happened at the presidential races or maybe the big statewides. But now these things have come to state legislative levels, and in a lot of states it varies. I think in Missouri it's fair to say that we were a little slow with some of those techniques to bring them to our Democratic campaigns, and we paid the price for it. So it's been a big push of ours over the last few cycles, and I think we have turned the corner and we're making up ground quickly as far as being able to get our operation in the shape that we're going to be competitive and to establish that new Democratic majority that we are. So that is the challenge and that is the job of the House Democratic Campaign Committee. Another crucial element to what we need to do is go out and recruit top flight candidates. This is a lesson that we learned very well last time. There's 163 state legislative districts in Missouri. Last time we ran candidates in 147 of those. We ran all but 16 districts. We managed to field and find good candidates. That was a record number of candidates, and we're hoping to beat that record in 2008. One of the reasons that I'm optimistic about what we're doing is I travel all across the state and talk to activists and talk to potential candidates, is I noticed that the Democratic base is very fired up right now. The Democratic base is, part of it is anger at everything that's happened to us over these last 6 or 8 years. Part of it is excitement, looking at the success that we had last year and the way things have turned around, not just here in Missouri, but at the national level. And I think people sense, rightly so, that there's blood in the water now. I think people across the state and across the country are very sick of what George Bush and the Republicans have done nationally. I think people are even more fed up with what Matt Blunt and his cronies in the legislature have done here in Missouri, cutting 100,000 people off their health care, supporting school vouchers for private schools, trying to destroy public education. People have just had enough of it. And I can tell you, I've talked to people almost on a weekly basis. I'll talk to somebody somewhere at one of these meetings just like this who will tell me, up until about the last year, or up until about the last 2 years, I was a Republican, and I always supported Republicans. But man, I look at it and I see what we've got now, and I see what they're doing, and I just can't take it anymore. I just can't stomach it. So I've got to do something about it, so I'm coming over to the Democratic side. I see that everywhere I go now. Everywhere I go. I bet even some of you have probably seen that here locally as well. Okay? I very seldom get calls from anybody on our side saying, well, I can't put up with this anymore. I'm so excited about the Republicans. I got to go over and join up with them. I've never heard anybody say that, not since I've been to Missouri. It's been a long time since I've heard anybody say anything like that. So the tide is definitely turning our way. Our people are excited, and more people are wanting to come out and run and put their name on the ballot and carry that Democratic message in 2008. So I think we're going to get a lot of good, strong, quality candidates to go out there and take the Democratic banner up and give us a better chance. Representative Jeff Harris, who of course was our leader until just a few days ago when he stepped down, had a great saying. He always liked to say, you'll lose 100% of the races when you don't have a candidate. So a huge part of our strategy has always been finding a good quality candidate, a credible candidate in every single district so that we have a shot to play in every single one of those. And it paid off earlier. Ted was talking last time about the seats we picked up. I mean, there were a couple of seats I can tell you that going into 2006, we really didn't think we had much of a shot there. But we made the effort anyway. We went out to find a good quality candidate. One of the examples I'll give you is from just a little bit up the road north here in Kirksville. There's a woman named Rebecca McClanahan who represents a district. You guys might remember the fellow who ran against Wes Schumeyer, and he got waxed in that Senate race last year, a guy named Bob Boehner. He represented what was previously had been a very strong, very red Republican district. And it's one that on paper you could easily look at and say, we should just write that one off. We don't have a chance there. But we didn't do that. We went out and we recruited Rebecca McClanahan, a fantastic candidate, and today she is a member of the Missouri House of Representatives. So little things like that make the difference. That's how it's all going to pay off for us. Another element that I think we have working in our favor we're excited about is Jay Nixon. Jay Nixon is going to run a very strong campaign. He is committed to running a campaign throughout the state of Missouri in every area, rural, urban, suburban, exurban, whatever. He is going to have a presence there. Polls are showing him to be popular in all those places. He's going to make the effort to get out there, and he's going to work. He's told us, and he's already shown us with his actions, he is committed not only to winning the governor's mansion next year, but to seeing that he has a Democratic majority in the Missouri House to work with. And I know he wants a majority in the Senate as well. He's going to go out and work and really put his brand on the line to help our Democratic candidates all up and down the ticket. That is going to be a big boon to our Democratic candidates that they're going to be able to take advantage of. Jay Nixon, in addition to being a strong candidate, running a strong campaign, also just has the right message for Missouri. I don't need to tell anybody in this room that, but you look at what Matt Blunt has done. Boy, the campaign message for the Democrats next year really does just write itself. It doesn't take a whole lot of research to figure out that people want better health care, that people are concerned about public education, the things that Matt Blunt has done to really just decimate any sort of plan for either one of these programs to bring a better quality of life to Missourians. Everybody in Missouri knows about it now, and I would not want to be on Matt Blunt's campaign team and have to defend the record of this governor over the last 4 years. That would be just a monumental headache of a job if you had to do that. Our side, we got it easy. All we got to do is go out and tell the truth about what they've been doing and about how we're going to make it better. So up and down the ticket, I think we've got a good, strong message to run on. Another thing that we like to emphasize with our candidates is the importance of running a good, solid, grassroots component of your program. That means going out and knocking on doors every day. It means keeping track of all of your IDs so that you know who you need to get out when it's time to get out to vote. It means going out and talking to voters about what's on their minds, getting your issues and your message out to them on a one-on-one way to do it. And I think the State House districts are the size such that it's really kind of the last level as you go up the chain of the races that you can really run a good, solid, really effective, comprehensive voter contact program by going out and door to door. You know, I mentioned earlier about how things are changing and it's becoming more expensive, and there's no question that money is a factor in these legislative races, and we want our candidates to be committed to going out and running good, solid, full fundraising efforts. But it's also true that you can really make the difference at the State House level just by going out and knocking on doors of the right people, just by being committed to going out and meeting as many of the voters as you can, finding out what's on their mind, introducing yourself to them, and saying, hey, I want your vote. You can do that at the State House level. That's exactly what our candidates are going to do. That is not only going to help them, by the way, that will also help our candidates above the ticket. That'll help whoever's at the top at the presidential level. It'll help Jay Nixon. It'll help our nominees for lieutenant governor and attorney general. It's going to help all those people because they'll be able to really go out and do that grassroots door knocking that a lot of times is tougher to do at the statewide level. But our candidates can go out and do that. That'll help the entire ticket. So the entire ticket is committed to working together in a way that I really don't think has ever been really been able to accomplish here before. And I think that's going to make a big difference for everybody. So I want to talk to you a little bit now about what's going on locally with respect to the State House races. Boone County is, I think, once again, going to be the site of a marquee matchup. Right here in Columbia, and in a little bit of southern Boone County, you have the 24th House District. Okay? If you've been following the papers or if you read the blogs like I do, I don't have to tell you who's going to run in that seat. Former Representative Chris Kelly has thrown his name out there. He's filed his committee. He will be making a formal announcement very soon. I speak to him almost on a daily basis. Man, I don't know when I've seen a candidate this excited and this together this far out in the election. I don't think he realizes that the election isn't this open. Yeah. Man, somebody told me this morning, and I can't think of a better way to say it. I would not want to have Chris Kelly running against me if I were an incumbent. Boy, you know, I don't care what your politics are, you don't have to think about it too hard to really start to feel sorry for Ed Robb and everything he's going to be facing now. Man, he has no idea what's about to happen to him. And if he didn't have enough problems already with just knowing that Chris Kelly is going to run against him, he also has to go out every single day. By the way, how many of you here live in the 24th District? Okay, quite a few of us, okay? Every time you guys see Ed Robb, even if you don't live in that district, you ought to ask him to account for the fact that All Children Matter, a group that is dedicated to destroying public education right here in Boone County. All Children Matter spent over $100,000 trying to get him elected last year. Mail pieces, everything like that, an obscene amount of money. All total, the Republican Party, Ed Robb, and all those groups together spent more money electing Ed Robb last year, or re-electing him, than any other Republican in the state, any other Republican at the State House level. He won by only 200 votes despite all that. Every single time you guys see him anywhere, you ought to make him account for the fact that he is supported by pro-voucher groups who want to destroy public education right here in Columbia and right here in Boone County. Everywhere he goes, he ought to be reminded of that. Something else you ought to remind him of. He's another one of these Republicans that likes to do this chest thumping about immigration and talk about how bad immigration is and about what he's going to do and really crack down on things. Well, a few weeks ago, you probably remember, we had a special session in the legislature at the end of August to deal with Governor Blunt's, what he calls his economic stimulus package. Matt Blunt wouldn't know economic stimulus if it bit him on the butt, but anyway. If you look at, but the point is, he had a bill, there was a bill dedicated toward economic stimulus. Well, a few of our Democratic representatives said, you know what, if we're really concerned about protecting Missouri workers, maybe we should put a provision in this bill that states that tax incentives, tax breaks, will not go to companies that employ illegal immigrants. Because that's really where, the stream comes from. That's you cut them off at the source. That'll stop it. Okay? We thought that was a good idea. That was a good provision. Companies who hire illegal immigrants should not be eligible for tax incentives or any kind of tax credits. Ed Robb and most of the Republican majority voted that amendment down. So as much as they like to talk and as much as they like to make a big deal about what they're doing to protect Missouri workers, when it comes time to actually crack down on their buddies, their corporate buddies who write them those big fat campaign checks, boy, they cut tail and run in a hurry then. Okay? Those are just two examples of the things that Ed Robb ought to have to talk about every single time he comes back here north of the Boone County line. Remind him, remind all your neighbors and all your friends, and ask him to account for those things. And depending on who you talk to, I don't even know for a fact that it would almost be disappointing for me. Ed Robb is out making the case now that he may not even run again. If he's smart, he'd probably just retire. That'd be the best thing for him to do. I think he's going to run again. I think he's just out there full of a lot of hot air trying to fool us. We are ready for this matchup, folks, I can tell you. I don't care if Ed Robb runs or if Ed Robb doesn't run again. Chris Kelly is going to represent the 24th District. We are going to have that seat back in Democratic. And then there's a couple of other districts of note right here in Boone County. But first of all, with a little bragging, we elected a new Democrat to the Boone County delegation last year, and I want to say thanks to all of you who helped out on that campaign. Paul Quinn in the 9th District, which represents part of Boone County, and it also goes into some other counties, replaced Wes Schumeyer in the House. So all of you who were involved in that campaign and helped elect Paul Quinn to that district, thank you very much. He has been a fine member of the caucus. And then there's a little bit of work we have to do outside the 24th District in 2008. As you know, a big priority for us is going to be holding on to the 23rd House District. That is the district that is currently represented by Representative Harris, who is going to move on to run for higher office. And that's obviously, for me, it's a big issue because I want to see all those districts stay in Democratic hands. It's also my home district, so God forbid I don't want to be represented by a Republican. So we have got to keep the 23rd District in Democratic hands. There's a gentleman with the sheet metal workers who's currently been out running for a while, a guy named Russ Unger. There may be more people who wind up coming forward for that on the Democratic side. I know the only person talking about it on the Republican side is the young guy named Patrick Crabtree, who Jeff Harris waxed last year. We got to make sure he doesn't get in there, or any other Republican that might come forward. So regardless of who it is, we need to keep a Democrat represent the 23rd District. And then finally, we have got to find somebody. We have got to find somebody to run against Steve Hobbs in the 21st District. Our own Skip Elkin gave it a good try last year, came very close, ran a great campaign, was right on all the issues, really took the fight to him. Unfortunately, came up just a little bit short. We'd love to see Skip on the ballot again. If he doesn't do it, that's okay. We need to find somebody, though. But we've got to find somebody who can beat Steve Hobbs, give him a run for his money, and get him out of there, and establish really what would be an all-Democratic Boone County delegation if we could do that once we took out Ed Robb. Wouldn't that be nice? So those are our challenges right here as far as the state house races in 2008. So to recap, we've turned things around. We made a big step in the right direction last year, but there's still a long way that we have to go in order to establish that Democratic majority. But we are going to do it. I promise you we're going to do it. Thank you for having me, and I'll be happy to take any questions if anyone wants to know anything more. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I actually kind of have two questions. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who thinks it's extremely likely that Ed Robb is going to jump over and run against Chuck Grant for the Senate seat.
Boy, the question was, is Ed Robb going to run against Chuck Graham for the Senate seat. Well, I don't know, but if I were Chuck Graham, I'd be licking my chops. I would be licking my chops. But who knows? I mean, Ed Robb's a really arrogant guy, so he maybe has convinced himself that he could win that seat, but come on.
Well, I don't know, but that's what, I don't know, that's kind of what the word on some of the streets is that that's what he's gonna do. But anyway, the other thing I wanna know is, what about that immigration law guy? I mean, the Republicans really do keep shooting themselves in the feet, it seems like, to engender the special election. Is there any chance that, is there a good Democrat down there that there might be some backlash against this guy anyway, and to get a good candidate going?
Our question is about a gentleman named Nathan Cooper down in Cape Girardeau. I don't know how closely you all may have followed this. He's another one of these Republicans that like to talk about how he was out there doing something about illegal immigration. But then a little unfortunate thing happened with him. It turns out that he has a business, and I won't go into all the legal particulars with you, but essentially the final outcome was he recently wound up pleading guilty to charges of basically helping illegal immigrants obtain fraudulent documents to help them stay in the country. So he is going to be a guest at a federal facility for a little while now, and they're going to have to find someone else to represent his seat. And yeah, your answer to your question, yeah, we do. The gentleman's name is Mike Keefe. He is the retired postmaster in town there at Cape Girardeau. Has been in the town for about 20-some years. And to give you an idea of how popular a candidate he is, immediately after Nathan Cooper resigned, the Republican committee down there approached him to run because they were so sure that he would win if he would put his name on the ballot. And he told them, well, you know, I have given some thought to running, but I'm a Democrat, so there's no way I can run as a Republican. So yeah, really, that is, I mean, realistically speaking, that is a tough district. We understand that. It's a tough district for us traditionally. But at the same time, I said there is kind of a change in the air all around, and a lot of Republicans are sort of disillusioned with the party and a lot of the hypocrisy and the arrogance they see, and Nathan Cooper was a prime example of that. So we feel good about our candidate there.